100,000 downloads and counting. Support from 4 major countries. Donations to 2 amazing causes, cystic fibrosis and the Boys and Girls Club. Also accolade that includes the 2022 nomination for the People's Podcast Choice Awards that are voted on by the people. You are listening to your #1 podcast that discusses relevant topics that include entrepreneurship, self-development, smart investing, and business and current events. Hosted by creator, influencer, and founder Dustin Steffi, you are tuned into Chopping with Fire. Let's chop it up. Welcome to Choppin' with Fire. We have a special packed episode for you today, adding on to our monthly sports and business topics. On this episode, we actually have a big cast list right now. So we got Alex back on with us. Alex. We got Chase, our CPA, back on with us. Chase. We got Dwayne on with us, and a surprise guest who finally made an appearance, Jaden.
Chop Nation. What's up?
People have been missing you, Jaden, so you got a lot to, catch up on.
Dude, we got to update on some special day today, D stuff.
We're not going to update on how special today is. With that being said, we're gonna just dive right into it. So today, our topic is going to definitely be within college sports. It's going to be rounding off NIL and transfer portals, headlines, money discussions. Definitely going to be a fun episode with perceptions, opinions, some good research as well. All of our research has been taken from the NCAA website, from ESPN, from a bunch of different credible sources for us to be able to put together and try to lay the groundwork for this episode. With that being said, let's dive in. Headlines, quick hits here. First headline that I have for everyone: Northwestern fires Pat Fitzgerald. There was an investigation started where there were allegations of hazing, right? To round this off, Fitzgerald made a comment. He said he had no idea that this was going on. So I'm going to just open the floor up on this one first to whomever wants to just dive into it.
Yeah, so I looked into it a little bit. I was actually golfing yesterday, and I was eating dinner at the Country Club, and one of my friends who worked for NCAA, now she's in the NFL, she was telling me about this. She's like, yeah, there was hazing, whoop-de-whoop. And so I looked it up, and according to the source, one former Northwestern football player said the hazing method is centered around a practice called running, in which underclassmen were restrained in a dark locker room and dry humped by upperclassmen wearing purge masks. The player said that this was the tradition that was especially common during training camp and around Thanksgiving and Christmas, which the team deemed runsgiving and runsmas. So that's definitely.
Oh, that's real? That's
yeah, I was going to say
that's pretty scary, man.
That's in
what? Read that again. What?
Brings me back to my fraternity days, guys.
Yeah, right. I was like, what are we reading from here?
Yeah. Sounds like a bad movie script, right?
Yeah.
She said the same thing. She's told me that yesterday, though, and I just saw this article today.
It made it sound like it's been not just a one-time off occurrence. If I'm hearing that right, like it's it's got like its own name for it, meaning it happened more than once. Like, right?
Players said this tradition was common around Thanksgiving and Christmas. They deemed it runsgiving and runsmas.
Runs given and runs missed. How long did they say this has been happening? Like, how long has this been part of the culture over there?
They said it was during training camp, so it's got to be a couple years at least.
Well, he's been with the Northwestern program since he played, even so back in what, Dwayne, 2005.
Yeah, I think he played college there in like the 90s, like the mid.
Okay, 2005, 2006 was the start of his coaching stint.
Yeah, but I think he's been part of the program for like over 15 years for sure.
He was the expendable one.
The part that gets me is this. Are you ready? His statement was he had no idea this was going on. How the hell does a head coach who builds culture on a team, and Jaden, you know this better than anyone because your dad, how the fuck do you not know that's going on?
Well, boys will be boys, man. We all play ball and, just run around whipping each other and shit. Like people do dumb shit in the locker room, but it sounds like this was like a planned event, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were the guys clothed when they do this? Like, were they just
what my friend told me yesterday was no. She said no. The article said that they had underwear on, but she told me no yesterday.
Yeah, that doesn't sound.
So if you were like a freshman, right, and you were going to be victim of this runs given or runs missed, like, were you forced into this dark room, or like, how do you?
I've been hearing hazing. Hazing's been like the word that they're using for firing him. So like fraternity hazing type shit. I think it's just in the locker room, and they probably just turned the lights off and just jumped him. I'm gonna guess.
Man, that's a tough one, man.
That's where that goes.
Like, that probably would have ran me out of the program like instantly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's take this from a logical standpoint, though. So when we look at hazing rules and laws and protections, especially centered around fraternities and organizations, it's illegal. It's illegal to haze. It's not good. It's not good press for Northwestern. I think, if I'm being honest and taking the logical approach, I mean, investigation or not, this was a good move for Northwestern because you don't want that bad reputation on a program. And so if I'm being logical here, whether he knew it or not, which I have lots of reservations on not.
I'm gonna say he didn't, because I'm just gonna say he didn't pay attention to that shit.
I mean, it doesn't.
He's a good guy too. So I don't think he did, and it's unfortunate that. But honestly, I think they're kind of just. They haven't been doing that good. Maybe they're just trying to pick a reason to get him out.
It's an easy way to let him go, huh?
Yeah.
Oh man, there for that long, and I mean, it starts with leadership anywhere, right? You got to go at the top, and whether they knew about it or not, they've got responsibility towards it, and they're looking for a reason to move on always, right? So again, it's a business. What's good for business? What's good for people coming to the college? They make a decision. Probably came to it. Yeah, that's the best thing to do. And that in this climate, you got to distance yourself. I know people laugh at that sort of thing, like you'll get canceled or something, but it will seep into your pocket. I mean, it's no joke. Yeah. So, it's a risky game to play otherwise. So I think that's all it is risk assessment, and you just make that call.
Yeah. I mean, I think you made a good point. Like quite often when organizations are looking to make changes with leadership, especially someone who's been there for a long time, he's been bad, maybe last year and the year before, but he's had some success there too for a school that doesn't have like these high expectations. I mean, one way to do it is, just to say, we need a culture change, and they've identified,
they're off.
A major flaw within the culture over there, right? Nobody's gonna dispute, moving on from Pat Fitzgerald with those kind of allegations. So
there you go. Yeah, they'll spin it into like, this is us doing something positive right now, and we identified this and did it forward. Exactly.
Right.
We've all played football, man. I mean, that's It's not something you should do, but I don't think they're trying to get him out of there. They're trying to get him out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I mean, I feel bad for whoever was exposed or a victim of this hazing, and I'm not trying to minimize the impact it might have had on a player, but it's inappropriate. I mean, I think there's other ways to integrate and make new players assimilate to the program, and I think it doesn't have to be as extreme as what was described in what you read, Jaden. That's just my opinion, but
I agree. You're right.
I don't know how that brings a team closer together. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in that. Like, who are the captains, right? Did they know about this sort of thing and step up? I mean, there's a lot of blame to pass around in this sort of deal. But at the end of the day, it's inappropriate, and your culture shouldn't be built on things like that to begin with. That's anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's soften the topics up a little bit by moving on to the next headline, which is discussion on SDSU. So, as you guys are aware, SDSU had a really good run recently in the NCAA tournament, making it to the final game, right? They lost, unfortunately. I was definitely pulling for them to win it all. And now they're looking at moving from the Mountain West Conference to the Pac-12. And we know that there's been movement in the Pac-12 already of other schools going out of that conference. So this is kind of a really good move, taking the money out for SDSU to go in and be like, hey, we want to go into the Pac-12 and be in a stronger conference. However, as we are a business podcast, bringing in the business and money side to it, there are implications, right? And I kind of wanted to discuss that. So one being $3 million buyout, right? To hop ship from Mountain West to the Pac-12. So couple questions, right? First and foremost, good move for SDSU, yay, nay, right? The next question would be, is this something that's going to hinder the rest of the teams in a not so strong Mountain West program? And the third thing to think about as we're discussing this is all the business sides, right? So TV deals, money, etc. So it's open floor for this one. Let's talk about it.
Let's start with the money. I mean, 3 million is like a drop in the bucket for this deal, because you look at TV rights, you look at increased attention from the media. Just for SDSU alone, like that's worth $3 million to them to get more attention. So, from a business perspective, this was a smart move for the college.
I agree. And I think that I know basketball has been really successful, or men's basketball has been extremely successful. They've got some tradition with that program. I think probably the biggest name that's come out of there is Kawhi Leonard. He's been a pretty good player in the NBA. So I think from basketball, they can compete for sure at the next level. And I would imagine football, which is the next, which is probably the largest sport, is going to do well too. Once they get into a better conference, have more resources, flowing through the program to hire better coaches, provide better meals, better training opportunities. I think it's a win. I think it's a win for them. And they built a new stadium that they're going to need to see a nice ROI on, through ticket sales, concessions, maybe even doing more things about renting that space out for other large events. Maybe they'll bring more bowl games to the area or different championship events to that space. So I think San Diego State is the winner in this.
But do other schools follow them is the question.
I mean,
if they can. That's kind of the goal, isn't it? The strategy from a larger perspective is
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Again, think of if you were running the university as a business, you were looking for the best market for that business to thrive in. I mean, so the way these conferences are built are, again, there's kind of another layer to this industry, and you're looking to grow to a point like scaling a business, and now you got to get into that next market to get that X multiple on it. So, you're looking for those that are doing it, and yeah, it'll affect the ones behind you, absolutely. But if they're built right, then they can, create that pipeline. So they bring in other schools before, that are maybe growing up through the ranks there, and now they have enough money to enter and be a catch for that industry. But I mean, yeah, this is the goal. So it's an accomplishment, but now they're swimming in there with with the big players. So you got to produce. I mean, it's a whole bunch of new obligations and new pressures put on the faculty, the players, the department, the athletic programs, things like that. They got to step up.
I think one thing we didn't mention, I haven't seen like all the athletic offerings at San Diego State, but I know going into the Pac-12, or I don't know if it's going to be Pac-10 again, but some of those schools compete in every sport you can imagine. Like you take a Stanford, for example. Stanford's got equestrian, they've got diving, they've got swimming, they've got strong soccer teams. So I don't think San Diego State has all of those, but now you move into that conference, you've added additional athletic offerings for the university, which is going to have you hiring more coaches, more support staff, more ticket sales reps. So I think there's a trickle down of opportunities for the program to grow, and then just giving more student athletes an opportunity to play on a higher level and come into the university maybe on scholarship and create educational opportunities. So I think there's a lot of good that can come out of it for San Diego State. So I'm happy for the move they're trying to make. I think it makes sense.
We saw this happen when you played, Dwayne. If you remember right, Nevada and New Mexico State were part of the Western Athletic Conference. And the Western Athletic Conference was starting to die out a little bit. Yeah. And so we saw Nevada, we saw San Jose, we saw a bunch of schools hop ship from the Western Athletic Conference into the Mountain West because it was more advantageous. My concern with SDSU leaving the Mountain West is we have all these other schools within the Mountain West too. So like Jaden and his dad at CSU, we have Nevada, we have UNLV, which by the way, UNLV is a separate story, right? Because they are playing in the Raider Stadium and they have good resources and stuff too, but their program just isn't there yet, which hinders them from being able to hop ship in a sense to the Pac-12.
They want to hire the Norvell.
Jaden's writing notes right now. He's like, Pac-12, maybe. But what I'm trying to say is, like, yes, we all brought up good points of the positives of why SDSU specifically should hop ship and money and all of that, right? But what we didn't bring up were the negative implications on the Mountain West for SDSU hopping out and what that does for the teams that are within the Mountain West. And does that dilute the Mountain West Conference and make it a lesser conference because we've been trying to build a stronger conference? Like, you know, I don't know.
They should take it that way.
I think the Mountain West needs to do all they can to hold on to San Diego State, because, with these universities, there's like a revenue sharing within the conference, right? So if San Diego State, goes to the final, what did they go to the NCAA finals? There's a huge inflow of cash that's distributed amongst all the member schools. And then I know the football team's been going to bowls. There's still a payout for all those schools. So if they leave, hopefully Colorado State can take over as the big dog in the conference. But that could get bad, because I know Dustin, like you mentioned, at New Mexico State, when we didn't go to the WAC. I mean, we didn't go to the Mountain West. We went back to the Sun Belt Conference, and then there was just kind of like turmoil from there. We ended up staying in the Sun Belt for a couple of years. Then we went independent And, for a smaller school like New Mexico State, we were playing. Man, one year they played out of a 12-game slate. I think they played like 9 money games. The games where you're playing, the Texas, Alabamas, and that just was really difficult for the football program to sustain. So just recently, I mean, we all our sports just moved to Conference USA, which is a good, which is a strong conference. But it was 10 to 15 years of just we're like nomads, one conference for 3 years, then independent, and then back to another conference. So it was a mess, man. So I would hate to see any other university, particularly some of the ones that are in the Mountain West that aren't as strong. I would hate to see that happen to them.
Another thing to think about, which we'll talk about later, is implications of transfer portal too, right? With the transfer portal allowing athletes one free pass in a sense, are we going to lose some of our talent in the Mountain West as the conference dilutes if SDSU moves to the Pac-12? These are all business things that we need to talk about. I
would say no. And we've all gone to San. I've gone to San Jose 7 years now, Dustin? 8 years? Been playing and going back and forth on the sidelines at the old stadium. And I mean, you talk about a beautiful campus. Nobody doesn't like going to San Diego State to play. Okay, so they're going to be good. And I'm so happy for them, their program, and that's great. But it really opens the door for us, man. It gets, and I'm going to use the American Conference. Tulane just beat USC. All right, they had to go. They were 10-1, I think. 10-2 had to go with East Carolina, which is a great team. Cincinnati is a great team, top 10 team last 10 years. UCF is always up there, and Navy's no joke. And the same for our conference. And I think with them leaving, especially football, it gets the opportunity to, okay, well, now I'm looking at the schedule. Okay, I got to play Boise State. Then I'm going New Year's Six, which for a big-time player is great. More eyes on me, more money, more NIL deal. So I think it opens up for a lot of these teams, New Mexico State, and a lot of these teams that lose players, San Diego State. It's going to be good now because now you have to, San Diego State, now they got to compete with Dion. They got to compete with, they got USC, so their guys are now all those players that were Mountain West players that maybe aren't, third string, fourth string in the Pac-12. Now they're getting diversified between all the other teams. So I think it's going to make it better and more competitive. And you'll have better records coming out of the Mountain West, more bowl games, more, like Dwayne said, more money for the schools.
Those schools should take advantage of this. I mean, the conference should focus on the conference. You just lost one of your schools to a different conference. That hurts. And you got to look at that, and you got to look at not losing other schools that are coming up through there, making sure that you're strengthening that conference as best as you can. Think of that. I mean, running the conference is like a business. You want the best players in there and at the best value. But if I was a school, seeing schools leave the conference, I'd make my deal now with the conference. Like, you need to keep us in this thing, or we're going to start looking. So now time for schools to,
it's weird, isn't it? It's almost like the G League. It's almost like the G League. When it comes to the non-power fives, we look at Houston, right, and going to the Big 12, and a bunch of, Tulane has a bunch of offers now. I know they got a bunch of offers.
The conference is a great point because the Big 12, I feel like they were arrogant in their ways, and their biggest members are now gone,
right?
And they're having to rebuild, but they were like, well, we're the Big 12, we don't have to do anything different. But as soon as A&M jumped ship, they should have been on top of all their members. And how can we improve our conference, make that a sticking point of, that we need to change our ways maybe a little bit or do something different.
I can speak on that a little bit. I've been with Pops at Oklahoma. It's the Big 12 is, so the Colorado left and A&M left. And the Big 12's rival is SEC. Man, everybody Big 12 versus SEC. And I think it's been tough. It's going to be tough for them. I agree with you, because I don't know who's going to be Oklahoma's won, I think 12 national championships, right? Like, we're looking down the line now, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, Houston. You know, who's the warhorse? Who do you put your hat on? That you're like, okay, this is our team that's going to play Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas, and beat them consistently. So I don't know. I don't know what I would that the Big 12 is in. I would say the Mountain West is in a better spot than the Big 12 is right now, as far as teams wise. Because I mean, if I think to answer the other question, I think they're doing great setting up and maintaining their programs because even at Nevada, Dustin, we had Sweet 16. We go 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row for basketball, and football is doing well. Boise State does well. Nevada, did well under us, and I think the level of, especially in basketball, the level of competitiveness in Mountain West has gone really high with the transfer portal. The transfer portal has been huge for that. Huge for that.
I think we also have to look at, though, power conferences, right? So when we look at the SEC, the ACC, and some of these big conferences, have we seen any big moves out of them in the last decade? Dwayne?
Not really. From movement of teams in and out the conference.
Right.
No.
Why do you think that is?
I was just while I've been listening to everyone, I was thinking about like what's been like the driving force behind like why everybody's been moving conferences. I guess it's the TV deals. But my thing is like, and I'll just focus on like the Pac-12 with USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. Like, there's a significant amount of money that's going into like SC and UCLA. But like, at what cost is it? How much actually is made when you factor in all the travel costs, flying across the country? And then like, what is the real reason? Are the schools saying, we're not going to provide any more funding to athletics and their auxiliaries and they got to be 100% self-supporting? Like, I'm wondering, like, are these conversations being had? Because I don't know why, you would want to put your student athletes who are there to study at such a disadvantage academically by traveling them, 3,000 miles for games. So,
well, maybe I think one, they want to play those guys, though.
Oh, for sure.
The athlete part of that, the backside athlete part, wants to go play Ohio State. But on another part I want to add is the cultural part. USC always plays UCLA every year. They can expect that, so that's why they went together. Yeah. Georgia Tech always gonna play Clemson, and so like the schools are more loyal to each other than the conference. This is like Penn State always plays Ohio State, and they're in the Big Ten.
But do you think that could go away if, like, say, like
it will never go away? It never goes away. Like Oklahoma and Texas left together because they always play each other.
So is there? But what about like Oklahoma? I guess that's Oklahoma, Texas is the Red River shootout,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, Red River rivalry.
Oh, River.
Since like 1910.
With A&M, it was a big money maker too.
These ties go back to like the 1900s, like families, like the new Tennessee Orange
weekend shuts down. The highways the weekend shuts down.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Man.
Yeah, that's amazing. But but that's my thing. I just wonder, like, for football, it's not a big thing, but what about the sports that play multiple games? Soccer, for example.
Well, Dwayne, to your point, it's always been that case. Is you've got a lot of these sports with underneath the athletic department that don't bring in the huge dollars, right? Everybody knows it. You got tons of, whether it's lacrosse, swimming, you got a lot of these sports going on, but they're not the ones driving the budget of the program, right? So now here's a classic example. You said, well, so when you look at what's one of the downsides of this, well, now those sports, again, they don't care if it's over here and they got to travel. They're making money on it, but it's these other sports that are suffering there. Like you were saying, they got to travel and do all this, and like it's no different for them. Just more mileage tacked on now. So
for sure. I mean, like, I just think like, if you're flying up and you're flying through Texas, like if Baylor is gonna, they're playing half their games or a third of their games in Texas. They're playing Texas Tech. They're playing the Longhorns. They might play, UT San Antonio for something. You know, they're not traveling that far. If they're going to even Oklahoma, that's a short flight. But man, you know,
I would say for
Texas
this
now in
first
the
couple of years,
SEC,
man.
you know, now they're going to be flying, you know, over into Florida. You know, it's just longer. It's just longer travel. I don't know. I just think I just think there's a downside to it, you know, and we won't really see some of that until we're a couple years in it, you know.
I would agree. I think the financial part far outweighs it. This first couple of years, though, man, this is gonna be so. I mean, that USC Ohio State game, but I feel bad. I do feel bad for the athletes because that's not a fun flight. Playing a night game, flying back, trying to do your homework. Oh,
man.
Yeah, a little per diem and a nice meal doesn't account for all
with
that.
With the time difference too. With the time difference too.
It's like,
dude,
all right, you gave me a few bucks to go out, but come on now, this is a lot.
SC goes and plays Rutgers, man, on a Saturday at 12 o'clock game. They have to leave like Thursday night. You know?
Well, I played with Rutgers, and we had to travel all the way out there. And that's what I'm saying. Like a couple of bucks in the meal is like, all right. But...
Man.
So as a coach, did you Dwayne? Did you think you would adjust the sleep schedule for the team accordingly to the time zone you're in? Man, especially for those two West Coast teams, they got to be waking up.
You want to try to, but man, I don't know, man. These cell phones and TikTok and all these other social platforms, man, these kids they're not sleeping, you know.
It's going to be interesting to watch these games because I think how many hours is the West Coast behind the East on like Columbus to 3? So that's a disadvantage for Ohio State, and they got to go out there. Yeah. Either way, it's gonna.
You got to acclimate.
You got a game plan for that completely. You got to budget the whole week out.
Yeah, we didn't have to. UCLA had to come to us, so you know we chose like a night game. You know, we wanted to make sure we leaned into that tires.
Man, you got to. It's a little strategy there, huh?
A little strategy. That's all it was. Just an edge up in the game. You had to find those ways, man.
This is some good discussion, guys. I think more to come as we see what SDSU does. We brought up some good valid points. I guess more to come, right? Definitely, I know everything that we brought up, they're thinking about, everybody's thinking about, right? And so as we start seeing this, we're not going to see this year, I don't think, but we'll probably see it for 2024, 2025 maybe. So more to come on that. Let's
to kind of end on that one from a university perspective. I mean, the travel maybe is an issue, but I think they're ready. They get more eyeballs when they're traveling in markets that they normally wouldn't get eyeballs in. So, you know, somebody like Baylor traveling to Florida, I mean, yeah, you might know Baylor, you might not, but if they're going there playing, you're going to get more eyeballs on the university. It's going to attract more attention to them. So from a business perspective, the university, I think, likes it better.
Yeah.
So diving into another headline, ex-University of Florida athlete, quarterback, Jaden Kitna, which is son of Joe Kitna, enters the transfer portal. Why? Because he was alleged at he was charged with 5 counts of child pornography. He accepted a plea deal for it. And now he's entering the transfer portal because UF dropped him to see if he can play elsewhere. So let's not get into the weeds with the charges, the plea, and the allegations, but let's talk transfer portal and some of these athletes that are looking for second, third, fourth, fifth, 100 chances later, and really talk about that. This is what the transfer portal is for. However, for this case specifically, for me anyway, if I'm interjecting my opinion into this, if I'm a coach, a reputable coach looking at talent, am I bringing this kid onto my program with what had happened? You know what I mean? Like, is this guy going to fall to the wayside? Or is a program that's struggling that needs a quarterback going to pick him up and give him a second chance?
Probably. I mean, I would imagine somebody's going to
Yeah.
Now, is he
I
better
mean,
than
Not
everything?
D1, not D1, but
I,
yeah, somebody.
I tell you, I wouldn't be shocked, man. Like the other guy who didn't know these kids hazing, like look at how the two stories intertwine with culture, right? Like sometimes when you're I mean, it's basically like a job interview, and those interviewing have to make the decision of whether or not those character qualities are ones they can help change, or they're going to watch, or they're like, I'm going to stand away from this thing. And they're going to make that assessment on it. You know, somebody is going to look at this kid and say, our culture can change that.
That's what I was.
We'll give second chances. That's who we are.
Yeah.
When in reality they're driven by the dude's stats, what he can do to the program and how the program can win and how that coach can. Unfortunately, there are coaches out there that they need the wins to keep the job, to keep it
Absolutely.
going. That I mean, the reality of it. So you put a lot of faith in your coaches at this point as a program that they will do that due diligence and hold true to the university's values while still making a good financial decision. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a conundrum of many of these coaches, athletic directors find themselves in. And I think you just said it. Well, man, we really need a quarterback. That's the only missing piece. We can get to get to 10 wins if we get a guy of this caliber. But then, how does the university feel about it? Someone who had these type of allegations. And I think that's, when they'll start trying to tout, oh yeah, our culture, we can bring them in and welcome them and help them recalibrate and get on a different path in life or whatever. But I don't know. I haven't seen the kid play, so I don't know how good he is. But I mean, if he was going to Florida, he had to be talented.
He's
And
3-star good, Dwayne. 3-star good. 3-star good.
Oh, 3-star.
3-star.
You know,
But yeah, I just think you see it on any level, right? With sports. I mean, we're talking about this on the pro level with players. Like, how could that team take this, a guy with these charges or past reputation of whatever? It's like they sign him, it's the deal. It's a branding thing, an image. But I'd pass personally. I mean, I don't know the guy, I don't know the severity, but I do hold true to character values when assessing the talent you want to grow. So
I haven't seen him play, and I mean, I would pass on him more than likely. We survived without him. We'll be good, without taking a chance on him. That's just me. But
it's the beauty of the portal, though, too, isn't it? Like to be able to have that kind of
those options,
competition
right?
within that. Yeah, exactly. Right. Which I coached at a lot of levels too, high school being one of them. And those kids that have access to that stuff is really difficult to find, so it's, and coaches are strapped too. Like they can't provide all those resources all the time to get the kids seen, do the videos and stuff like that. So I think the portal is a good thing, but competition wise, you hope that they pass on those kinds of players and look for the good ones.
I think the portal's I think there's a lot of value in the portal. I think, sometimes, players, they make decisions on the schools they're going to attend and it just doesn't work out, for maybe there isn't, a connection between the player and the coach or the player and the other players on the team. Maybe the city that they're residing in just doesn't really match who they are as an individual. And they need to change the scenery, right? And don't need to be penalized for it by losing years. That happens, and I'm in full support of that. But then on the other hand, I mean, I think sometimes kids are just, oh, I'm not playing immediately, I'm gone. Oh, I'm not going to play here, I'm gone. And that they just keep repeating that cycle. So I think when it's abused, we see the ugliness of the portal. And that's like with anything, but I think you've got the portal also has all the other black market deals that go along with it, like enticements. Hey, transfer here, we'll pay you, we'll give you this much money, or we'll give you this car, or we'll do this for your family. I think all that. I think there's some of that happening too.
Oh yeah.
And it's just
here's where I'm at with the whole thing, guys.
thing.
So the portal is going to evolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a couple notes that I wrote down are there going to be more stricter rules associated with how you enter into the portal based off of your character? So right now we don't have any rules of who enters into the portal aside from you have one free pass to enter into the portal and you're still eligible to play that same year. What I'm thinking is going to happen is, especially as we see more of these characters popping into the portal, right? Is the transfer portal going to be stricter on who enters in based off of character, based off of crimes, whatever the case may be? Because if we look at it like NFL wise, right, Dwayne, if something happens that's bad, whether you are violent towards your wife or you're in domestic disputes or whatever the case may be, there's pretty damn heavy penalties. And so are we going to start to see that strictness come down into the NCAA for that? And again, this is all spitballing, right? Because this is still new and it's still evolving. My take is, like, I don't know this kid at all. Like many of us, we don't know this kid, but I do know a thing or two about people that have parents that grew up as professional athletes and or celebrities and or whatever. And our culture usually gives pretty lenient passes versus like the normal person like us, right? Like if this same thing happened to, say, me, it would be a lot stricter. Like, this guy got off not registering on the sex offender list and with community service and whatever. And I'd like to think in the back of my mind, that's because of who his dad is too, and the nature of the beast. Like, I mean, guys, let's call a spade, right? Like, these are things to think about. Are we being lenient because of status? And are we allowing this athlete to still compete because of status, or are we doing the right things? Like, you know what I mean? I know it.
That's what I don't like about this individual is actually the precedent it sets for everybody else who's doing it right. You know what I mean? Like this is because you can see, to your point, new sort of ways. I actually think the portal would be best suited by filters. You put the power back to the individual making the decision, right? Like the coaches, the universities, you don't make that decision for them. That's like, you don't have to do it, right? So a business, if you don't have to put yourself in a corner, don't do it, right? It's like, I can put the risk on you. So putting it on them. But how many, I mean, I know so many kids that have, like, just misdemeanor charges, whether it's a misdemeanor drug charge or something like that, that keeps them from even getting jobs around here, right? Like, we have a problem in our justice system with those sorts of offenses holding people back for everyday things. And now this portal can run the risk of, yeah, this is, I would say, is a probably serious one, right? But if you had another person who had one that's like, man, and where's the line on it? So I think you bring up a good point that there's potentially new rules, and how do those new rules affect everyday kids who maybe got a bad rap or made one bad decision, and now they can't even, look presentable or be seen in a portal, on this thing. So that's just my take on that question you asked, which I thought was good.
That was a good question. I want to chime in. I think I agree. There needs to be new rules, and it's kind of a bag of worms. Where's the line? A felony is a felony, but there's a lot of. I think each case has to be analyzed and looked at. And like you said, it's hard to get a job when you have. And if sports is your way out and your way to support your family, it's not because you made a mistake with the law. I don't think it should be taken away from necessarily, but I do think that it sets a bad example going forward of what is okay to get away with and be able. I don't think that their scholarship should be taken, because I think academics should be. I don't think that should be taken, but I do think the right to play a sport is a right, and it's something that should be taken away if something like that happens. I don't think that's a good, because there's a bunch of people who do it the right way, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we're not rewarding. It's like a uniform blanket approach right now, right? So whether we have an athlete that's doing all the right things, or we have an athlete that is opportunity athlete, right, that is making some poor decisions, we're blanketing. We have a blanket statement right now where we're not rewarding appropriately. And I just don't think that culturally that is acceptable. And again, that's just my opinion. I'm also old school too. I was raised old school, but Jaden, so were you.
I agree.
And a lot of things for you, Jaden, are strict because of your father and you guys have to dance a fine line. Dwayne, same with you. Chase, you own your own business, and so you have to operate at the highest caliber possible. And then Alex, you were a professional athlete. Your image was very important. I mean, you had to make all the right decisions, and you were on the stage being looked at all the time. So why do we have this blanket right now where, like, whether you're good or bad, everything's the same repercussion?
Yeah, I mean, you ask a good question. I think it's a sort of microcosm of larger sort of life in general, right? Like you've got to work extra hard to be seen, even if you're doing the right stuff. We like to focus. I think it's a values thing, what we focus on, but don't lose your values. Don't go chasing what everybody's looking for today, because like I've shared with you before, everything swings on a pendulum. So you just stay tight. That pendulum is going to swing back, and you'll be looked at quite differently when those things change. Like don't go with the way the wind's going. Stay true to something solid. So, sure, the eyes won't be on you right now. It'll come back on you. Stick to the process, stick to solid values and things like that. Things sway back all the time. You get sick of looking at things in one way. So then you're like, I don't want to look at this anymore like this. So it swings back this way. So,
like
thank you all for your opinion on this.
Stay in the middle.
Yeah. I appreciate you all for your opinion on this. I mean, it bodes more questions that are unanswered right now, but I can see changes happening, some more to the transfer portal as it evolves. Because again, transfer portal and NIL are still too new, and they're evolving all the time. So let's move on. Transfer portal wise, I have some stats that are pretty important. This is where we'll start hearing Jaden talk a lot, so it'll be good. As of right now, so as of the 10th of July, here are the statistics of how well utilized the transfer portal was for NCAA football right now. At the top of that list, Colorado. So as we all know, Deion Sanders is coaching Colorado, has 51 total transfers that have been brought in to Colorado. 51 on a team that has that's 60% of the team right there. 60% of the team is transfers. Okay, let me finish with the rest of the schools and then we'll dive in. The next school behind Colorado right now is Ole Miss with 25 people leveraged from the transfer portal. 25. Auburn is right behind Ole Miss with 21 being leveraged from the transfer portal. Behind Auburn is Oklahoma using 17 and recruiting 17 people from the transfer portal. We have Miami and USC, who have 16 people that they have taken from the transfer portal. LSU and UCLA have 14 people that they have taken from the transfer portal. And then we have Oregon that has 15 people taken from the transfer portal. These are just some top notable schools, right, with the most that have been taken from the transfer portals. I know other schools have recruited based off the transfer portal, but these were some of the bigger numbers right here. In my take, I mean, the transfer portal is there for a reason, right? And that's to build a strong program. But in my mind, I still am a fan, and Jaden knows this too, because, well, bias and me, right? I'm still a fan of the good old fashioned phone call and the old school way of recruiting and really having the coach in front of you and all of that fun stuff. And I know that Jaden and his dad work real hard on that. And it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time and it's a big time commitment versus going on a computer and looking at the transfer portal and being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just click this button, I'm gonna put my name in the hat and hopefully we grab this person. So what are your guys' thoughts?
The transfer portal is, I'd like to know, like, of the schools that you mentioned, like, let's say Colorado, since they had 51 transfers, how many high school kids did they recruit this year? Because I think the real detriment to the transfer portal is just destroyed the number of high school kids and even junior college kids that are going into the athletic programs. And I think that's a problem. Like, if you don't have, so we'll just look at football. Most schools on average would recruit, let's say they had 25 available scholarships, and let's say they said, we're going to take 5 junior college guys and then all high school kids. So that's 20 opportunities for high school kids. Now, if they're taking, they got 25 scholarships and they're taking 20 portal guys, well, how are you building a pipeline for that program? There comes a point where you run out of bodies. You've created attrition that isn't sustainable, so now, how do you manage that? So I'm kind of from the school of thought where the portal is good for like filling a immediate need, like maybe 1 or 2 guys, but I mean, assembling an entire roster with portal guys just doesn't make any sense to me. That's now, I'm sure there's some brilliant, incredible.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it like, man, I wish I would have bought some stock in Dion because it looks like this guy is a genius in what he's doing. Just from his perspective, like, agree with everybody's points made about what it's stripping from, but like from the numbers, this guy is like, he's killing it up there. Like, that's the goals they wanted to do as a university, as a location, as an area. Dion's been doing that for how long? I mean, he brought his old primetime thing, brought voice to a position and players like never seen before, right? He's taking that model and bringing it now to the university. And like, he's people better watch, organizations better watch out because they're going to find themselves in that dilemma where they're going to have to make the choice. Do I go and compete in this place with him? And is that who we want to be? Or do we want to keep it old school, go directly? And this is how we want to essentially hire people to come play for us, right? He's just found a new hiring pool that he thinks is a competitive advantage for him in the program. So,
yeah, exactly. That's what he's.
Colorado knew this was a huge business opportunity to get recognition for the. I mean, just the media attention alone is worth it to hire him. But the kids transferring, just from a business perspective, I mean, I don't know where they're all coming from, but these kids immediately get attention on them just by being coached by Primetime, more than likely, and maybe some NIL deals coming their way just because they're on the team and getting recognition playing in Colorado that they may have not been in their previous program from a business perspective. Now, from a hiring perspective, I agree with Dwayne here. I mean, you got to have a pipeline. Plus, why are these kids transferring is always my question. Like, where's the commitment to the program that you signed up for to begin with?
There's not a lot of it. But there's not a lot.
It's like, yeah, right. It's like dating. It's like, yeah, they left somebody, they could leave them again.
Man, if Dion, and to answer all your questions, so as a coach, it's not just pressing a button. Still got to call the transfer kids. To agree with this point, I think maybe like a limit on the year, like maybe your sophomore year, you become eligible to transfer. That way, we still have high school kids getting recruited for that first 2 years, or maybe you can't transfer after your sophomore year, something. That way it's more fair. But I mean, Colorado's a great team. It's going to be must-see television every week for sure. And we got to play in week 2. I think we play them their first home game. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited. But they still got to play TCU. They got to play TCU, Oregon, USC, Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, and Utah. So we're going to see.
We're going to find out
how many kids going to stay around after that year. But I hope they do, because USC's leaving. And I think Deion's in a really good spot to really run that conference with Utah. And he's in a spot to be in a championship game every year if they stick around, and they should. He's a great coach.
Yeah, you got a point. Hopefully they stick around. Or hopefully Deion sticks around, man. He might, if he goes out there and does well.
Well, see, that's
might be gone.
That's the geniusness, and it is. He's looking for results now, right?
That's to be honest, next Falcons head coach.
This is results now type scenario. That's why he's going through the portal, tried and true. Go with players that know a system. Like, he doesn't want to have to deal with some young high schooler in their sort of transformative years, getting adjusted and everything. He's like, I got to win games now. I'm prime time. If I don't win games, this whole thing crumbles here.
So maybe his whole strategy is like, okay, I can go to this Colorado, a smaller Power 5 or not as prominent Power 5, win some games, then get a job in, the SEC or, the Texas of the world. And where he's there, he can get the best high school kids. So he doesn't need to flirt with the portal, because you can't pick, I want that top 300 quarterback. I want that top 100 running back. He's going to get the cream of the pick of the litter for all the high school players, which he can't do. He couldn't do at Jackson State. Can't do it at Colorado. But you can do it if you can get to Auburn. You can do it if you get to Florida. You can do it at Clemson. You can do it at Alabama, So he gets his whole strategy will probably change.
That's it. That's why he made that jump, right, from Jackson State up to there. I mean, it's Deion. Like, who Deion is, right? It's just kind of follow the play here.
Back to the culture question too. I mean, he has a great culture that he built, previously, and bringing that to Colorado. I think the kids are excited to be a part of that culture, and why they're looking at playing for him. I think they'll stick around longer than typical programs are doing right now. But he seemed to get it at Jacksonville State.
I mean, as a sports guy, and being at Oklahoma, and it's fun when they like you, and it's not fun when you are projected like they're projected to only win 3 games and sell out every game.
So how hard is it to maintain the culture when you're not winning?
And you want to talk about culture? It's not even that, man. I mean, we talk about Northwestern. Just to start the culture, you got 40 different kids from different states. So you gotta. I mean, just to build the team, it's going to be a fun camp. But I mean, he had to do what he had to do. The Colorado's outscored 406 to 155 last season. So those players that were there,
you got to do
something, man.
Yeah, but big risks come with big falls, So that's just, but
you got to do something.
That's Deion.
The first year's always the roughest. So
he's the right person for the job, that's for sure.
Yeah, and if you line up Travis Hunter one-on-one on the outside, you're going to get results. I mean, it's just
I'll be honest with you, college football was getting a little sleepy without this move in general. It was kind of just dozing there. So he added some life to the entire thing. I tuned in for a little prime time for sure.
I agree.
I'm looking forward to watching them open the season. I'm sure they'll be on television.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys bring up all of you bring up awesome points, but one that I want to bring up is the academic side. Of course, the PhD person brings up the academics. And the reason why is because with the transfer portal, you have all these different people coming in, and they want to play for Deion. What does this do for the university as an entity for academics? You know what I mean? Like, these are the questions that I'm thinking about. So again,
as a coach, I can answer that. So we have a whole academic team when we have our staff meeting, that analyzes the university sends in academics people to the football meetings, and they analyze all your recruits, and they try their best to get them eligible to be able to come play. So if they need a 3.0, we'll sit down with the academic guys. Okay, you got to take this amount of summer classes to reach this. You got to do that. So they're brought in at the nobody's passed through, if that makes sense. So they have to meet the requirements no matter what, and it's just a matter of extra classes or retaking classes that really gets guys in, because a majority of like 95% of kids are smart enough to get into any major besides like Stanford, and UCLA is tough, but that going in.
Isn't Colorado's a high academic? That's a STEM school, right?
Yep, but I mean, when you're outscored by 300 points and you cut all your players, you have 45 open scholarships. So
that's a lot of scholarships.
As long as you can get in with the 3-4, it's paid for.
Those tuition dollars are going to go up.
A lot of out of state guys. Huh?
Yeah, the tuition's about to go up. I mean, some money will flow into the overall education program. I think that's universities aren't heartless. I mean, they definitely want to look after the education and the sustainability of people's futures beyond there, right? So it's not an all or nothing. So this will give a boost to a lot of programs. You're going to see some money trickle down into some certain academic studies, maybe resources, for them. I would imagine you'd see some of that stuff come through. But the tuition is definitely going up, and that's what everybody can be happy about Dion being in their school. They ain't going to be too happy when they see the bill for Dion. I mean, who do you think pays for Dion? Like that's what comes, like his new office and all that stuff that's in there. Okay, that the athletic program, all those resources. Eventually, it trickles down to tuition and what you pay.
It used to be like that though. Too, Colorado used to be good, really good.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be top Big 12, so they're used to being up there, and they were not having it. They were not having it.
More to come on that one, Jaden. When I come visit you, we're definitely going down there. So just
I mean, we play them second game. You guys will see me on the sideline. Y'all see Dustin on the y'all see Dustin out there too. You see Dustin out there.
So the game's in Fort Collins or it's in Boulder?
It's in Boulder. It's their first home game, bro.
Oh. Right. That's probably going to be on national television. I'll probably be on
ESPN. Yeah.
Look at that. You getting something off of the whole thing now.
I'm going to have my popcorn ready.
Yeah, that's what I'll do my NIL deals for that week.
Right, good transition, Jaden. So let's transition into NIL. I think we've talked enough about transfer portal, and we've had a lot of good conversation with that, but let's dive into NIL. Dwayne, I know pre-roll we were talking about some of these deals, and I know you have some information on that. So the floor is yours on NIL. The only changes that I've seen for rules right now is NCAA is trying to get more of a uniformed approach on the NIL. There hasn't been anything yet because they're still kind of waiting. Like most politicians in politics, we're going to be playing the hurry up and wait game. So with that being said, NIL wise, where are we seeing the majority of the monies coming from, and about how much are these athletes worth, and how's it measured?
Yeah, while I was doing my research, I started to like stumble upon like some interesting stuff. Like you'd see like these valuations, right? And you wonder like, well, what does a valuation really mean? Is it like a house where your house is worth, let's say 500,000, but how much money do you really have from it? So that was one of the things that I looked at. But really, I see like some of the women athletes who are really crushing it in NIL. Like, for example,
big time.
Yeah.
Biggest.
Like, for example, Sunny Lee, who was an Auburn gymnast, she was in the Olympics a few years back. I mean, her valuation was at like 1.6 million, but it's probably all legit because she won a gold medal, right? She's certified, she's official, but she has sponsorships like Cliff Bar, Amazon, Gatorade, like Invisalign, Target. You know, those are like major American, you know, companies, you know, so it's not like, you know, she's got to deal with Dwayne's local sandwich shop in Auburn, Alabama or whatever, you know. It's like it's like real, you know. And then you guys have probably heard of like those Cavender twins, like the Haley and Hannah. They play basketball at University of Miami, but they were at Fresno State, you know, playing basketball, and they were, you know, one of them was a starter, you know, and you know, there's articles out there that say like, oh, they're making all their money because they look good, you know, they're using their sex.
Hey, that Mountain West basketball, bro.
But they're earning, but they said those girls are earning $2 million a year, like earning from all their endorsements. Like they have like a huge like TikTok and Instagram following, you know, so they're really popular. But then like the highest in the top 10 of NIL deals, you know, Olivia Dunn is the LSU gymnast. Like, she's making money hand over fist, man. Like she's got deals with like Forever 21, Grubhub, you know, cosmetic brands, American Eagle.
Olivia Dunn.
Dude, she's the highest earning female athlete in college.
Olivia Jaden is single and looking, so you know.
Hey man, we're talking business here. We're talking business here.
Straight business. That's all.
It completely makes sense that females are earning a lot of money because females are the biggest buyer in the market for products. So for these companies to sign on to female athletes that are, you know, getting a lot of eyeballs and attention, it's smart for these companies to be doing it.
For sure. And then, you know, when you look at that, it's like, well, what are the guys? You know, are the guys getting this kind of money? Like, yeah, there's information floating around out there, but like I mentioned, the women are backed by Cliff Bar, Amazon, Target, Gatorade, whereas a lot of football players are getting money through collectives, you know? And you wonder, like, well, what is the collective? Who's backing the collective? That's always been my question. I think it's like, I think it's agents.
So this is a great time in history talking about equal pay, and I think this is great because back in the day, like you use Barry Switzer recruits, you'd buy your mom a car, but Barry, you know, if you're a girl getting recruited for basketball, you weren't getting shit, you know. And I think it's. And so I think there's been collectives for guys for a long time. So this is great.
But you know, but if you look at like the top 5, so they've made projections, right? So like the top 5 NIL earners for 2023, you guys won't believe who's the number 1 projected NIL earner for 2023. You guys probably will if you think about it.
Got to be some sort of obscure.
Dustin Steffi.
Some sort of obscure sport.
Right? Dude, Bronny James.
James
and Arch Manning.
Archie Manning.
There you go in that valuation, and I call that valuation inflation, right? That's because of the parents and that that background. Like, so other people got to look at that and look at it with a little bit of like, all right, that, you know.
And let's take LeBron James's kid out of it, right? Is it largely to his father? Well, he's a good basketball player too.
But, so besides Peyton Manning's son and Braun's son, who's beside them?
So number 3 is the kid Mikey Williams, the high school basketball player.
He's a hooper.
Yeah, so he has a sportswear deal with Puma. So you know that's pretty big. And then Caleb Williams is number 4. You know, the quarterback, USC Trojans, was probably the best quarterback in the nation. He was number 4. And the number 5 college athlete was Olivia Dunn, the LSU chick.
Good.
So that 3.4 million.
Good.
3.4 million. That's
so besides football, the highest paid athlete in the world is a female.
Yeah.
College.
Well, Bronny James, Bronny James and Mikey.
Yeah, I wouldn't count. You can't count the legacy kids.
No, I think you boil it down to you boil it down to earnings, actual earnings during a year, right? I think she probably does have them.
I think she has them too, just based on her sponsors, you
I
know.
mean, count Instagram.
I mean, she's got deals
Right.
with ESPN. Olivia Dunn does. I mean, she's big time. She is, you know, top of the top. But it's interesting, man. Like I just read off all that, and you know, when you're looking for this NIL stuff online, there's so many like kind of sketch websites. You're like, where are they getting their information? Is it credible? You know, but I did see something on Sports Illustrated, you know, and it had me really thinking about what the NIL marketplace really looks like. And so they were saying that NIL collectives are offering like significant funds, and it's, you know, kind of like an NCAA violation, but it's unregulated. But they were saying the top 10 ranked players for like both football and men's basketball received an average of $500,000 each, $500,000 each. So that, but they're saying just the top 10, right? And then they said the top 300 football players, you know, are receiving like $30,000 a year, and the top 150 basketball players are making $50,000 a year, and that's largely through NIL collectives. So,
I think that's great.
All of that money,
like
my initial CPA question is how you filing your taxes.
Yeah, right.
Because, you know, other than the James family and the Manning family who have the resources, you know, a lot of these families don't even think about it or have the resources.
So like who's really on the hook? Like the collective providing the money or the one receiving the money?
The one receiving the money, they're the one paying taxes on it.
Mm-hmm.
Are they paying taxes? If it comes in like a
I
check,
hope so.
But that's where I think the new NIL is, that they can start a business entity and receive funds through that. That would be their best route, is to remove themselves as an individual. Right. Now, Chase, you can probably back that up, but it's, you know, create yourself some sort of shell to run it through versus the individual for liabilities and stuff, right?
Yeah, liability a little bit, but you know, mostly from a financial perspective. I mean, we focus on S corps. I mean, I've been talking about S corp for the last 12 years, teaching attorneys about it too. But you know, over the last 20 years of, you know, LLC S corp, you know, is what most of these people should be setting up. If you're making over 50, 60K net profit after expenses, that's like our break even for just setting up an S corp. So if you're, you know, getting 50 or 100K plus and from these collectives or you know, NIL sponsorship deals, you know, from whatever age, you should be setting it up and managing it that way. You know, you can be any age to have a LLC S corp. You don't have to be 18 over. And you know, the tax savings from doing it that way are thousands of dollars, or tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what kind of money you're making. So as soon as you know, even consider signing the paper, you know, reach out to a CPA and have a conversation about taxes, because otherwise you're just wasting money to the government and overpaying FICA payroll taxes. Movie industry, you know, a lot of kid actors do it. It's called loan outs. You know, and they're all the major ones are working under an S corp as a loan out in a production company. So
how does that
that's
work?
what we're trying to educate the NIL kids with. You know, you need to set up an LLC. You need to make an S corp election. You sign the agreement of whatever deal you're making under the LLC's name, and that way the LLC's, you know, collecting the check. You got to have a separate checking account. That's where kind of a licensed money manager like a CPA can come into play to help manage that process for you and make sure you're doing it correctly. But from a tax perspective, you know, we're trying to educate the market because this is so new with NIL stuff. These kids, especially in underserved markets like where I grew up in Houston, you know, they don't know any better. Their parents don't probably even have a CPA because they're just making a W-2 and filing TurboTax or some tax software. So, you know, they don't get into that conversation. But if you own a business, you know, you own rental property. I mean, if you're getting NIL money, you're in a business, plain and simple. And, you know, you need to think about reaching out to a CPA at whatever age and, you know, have a conversation to save on taxes. Otherwise, again, you're just wasting it to the government.
Heck yeah. It's opportunity. I like it. You know, it's giving people opportunity, start accruing some wealth a lot earlier, it's but I'll be honest with you, there ain't people out there lined up to go tell you this information, like sitting around waiting to like, oh, let me tell you exactly how to do it. You got to go seek it out and get it.
Well, they're in the right place to get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you just heard it right there. He's waiting for you. Like, you got to step and go ask him.
They might need.
Yeah, I mean, well, the biggest thing for me is, years ago, I applied, to be part of the NFL Players Association and the Grammy Association, because we work with some of these people. And those associations, I have an email. They do not accept CPAs in their association.
Really?
So, they allow attorneys, they allow financial advisors. How many of those have you seen on American Greed? And they allow agents, but not CPAs. And, obviously I'm biased, but I mean, it's called the most trusted profession in America for a reason, because we police ourselves. So, you don't see a lot of CPAs, stealing money from people like musicians and athletes. I mean, just look at 30 for 30. How many NFL players have gone broke? How many musicians have gone broke? Their own association doesn't even care about them enough to allow CPAs in the association to help them. So it's really on the onus of the person receiving the money, i.e. these kids, and getting NIL deals to be aware of it and think about it. They're not teaching financial education in high school. They're not teaching it in college. So, at some level, you got to reach out and hopefully watch this podcast and be educated about it. So you can at least have a conversation and know what your next step should be.
Education, that's the biggest gap or the biggest success to anyone. You're either educating yourself or you're not. And so that's why we had all of you on, right? Everybody has a lane on this podcast right now, and that lane is very specific. And so for you, Chase, like, you're right. Like, this is something that everyone needs to think about, because at the end of the day, taxes aren't going away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about, educating, the market and our clients and people we talk to. I mean, you can call us and we'll just have a conversation, because I care about people, and, we always treat how we do taxes like it's our own money. That's how we approach, maximizing tax savings here. But I am passionate just as a profession to help people avoid overpaying taxes. And I grew up, in East Houston. Nobody taught me how to manage a checking account in high school. I was naturally educating myself towards money, because it's, who I am. And I'm not an athlete, I never was, outside of like Little League. So I'm the business guy, I'm the money guy. That's why I've always loved money, but studied accounting, got into taxes. So we're passionate about teaching families and kids about it, because, a lot of times this money comes very early in a life, and these athletes get money very early on. If you spend it, the money goes away. So we're not trying to educate to just save it all, but at least manage it properly and put a good chunk away for a rainy day, so it's there for you. I mean, you invest it properly, you can live off the dividends for the rest of your life if you're making $500K a year from a collective.
Man, that's impressive.
So that being said, recapping everything, right? We've discussed a lot today. We've discussed and had conversations centered around NIL, transfer portals, around headlines in NCAA, you name it. We got that all out today. But in closing, for all of us, I want to just go around to everyone real quick. Biggest takeaway from today and most important impact from just this episode and what we discussed today, just to kind of summarize it. So instead of me summarizing everything, right, we have enough people on here to have everybody's take on it. So let's go around the room. We'll start with Alex, and then Chase, Dwayne, Jaden, and I'll end us up.
Man, well, I appreciate it. I mean, what a great conversation. You got to people listening, I mean, this is, you're going to get some great information here, but you got to go and act and do something on it. That's really the difference, is in just acting upon these things. But I will say, based on our conversation, just be aware that it is be aware of the game you're playing. This is a business and you are stepping up into it. There are rules and there are guidelines and there are ways to present yourself and increase your value. And so being aware of that actually gives you the freedom to be yourself, play with it, do different things in there, and be flexible and take it to the limit you want. But just really understand the larger scale, step back and look at it to see what's going on, because there's a lot of interest in play and people working around the scenes. So don't be naive to the system you're in.
Very good point. Thanks for having me on. I kind of biggest takeaway is, I always like to say all money is not good money. So, think about what you're doing, who you're signing on to, where this money's coming from, what are the expectations of the money. It's important also to think about, before you sign that dotted line. And then, certainly, as it kind of ended earlier, as soon as you're even considering signing a deal or getting money, talk to a licensed CPA about setting up an LLC, maybe making it an S corp, how to save on taxes, because as soon as you get that check, you're a business. It's 1099 money, and you're an independent contractor at that point. So it's the onus on you to pay taxes. It's the onus on you to manage your own money properly. And a lot of times, I'm afraid that we're going to see a lot of tax cases with these kids spending all the money and not saving enough for April 15th to pay taxes. That's what we're trying to help avoid here. So make sure you're talking to a professional, and remember that your agent and is not a licensed CPA and not licensed professional, so to speak, from a state board perspective. So your attorney, we always try to communicate being a team around you. You have an attorney, you have an agent, you have a CPA, you have an insurance person, whatever that team needs to be, your marketing, etc. I mean, you're the CEO of your business collecting that money. So make sure you have the right resources around you to protect your interest, and don't end up like everybody you see on TV that went broke or somebody stole it from them.
I think it's on me now. Yeah, it was a fantastic, roundtable discussion with some really brilliant and charismatic guys here today. And I think it's an exciting time in college athletics. We've got, levels of parity from a, compensation standpoint with the student athletes that never existed. And now we've got, some of our top earners through college athletics in the NIL program are actually women. And I think that's a great time for us. On the downside, I think we've got more people making money through NIL and collectives, and there can also be consequences of not doing things the correct way. I think Chase said it best. You've got to be able to set up your operation as though you're a business, because you are at this point. You're a 1099 worker. You're not a W-2 employee where taxes are automatically deducted. And I think people need to realize what can happen. You might make your $100,000 a year, but if you didn't prepare for taxes, you could be in for a rude awakening. And really, with the opportunities you had to put your life headed in the right direction with this windfall of cash, you now are over in the government. And that could lead to garnishments in future earnings that you have through an employer. So I think this was a very informative podcast. I hope more people were able to listen to it and maybe can take something from it. And I'm just really thankful for being on today, because I learned something too. So with that said, I'll hand it over to Jaden.
Is Dwayne? Yeah, again, like I said, it's awesome talking with you guys, and it's great talking ball with y'all, man. It's always fun. Definitely want to do this again during the season, for sure. I would love to talk just about updates and what's going on. And like Dwayne said, it's a great time for women and NIL deal. That's awesome. And it's an exciting time with the transfer portal in football, with all these conference moves, USC going, the Big 12, and San Diego State leaving, and it's really fun. And on the non-ball side, it's really open. Like Dwayne said, I learned something. It's really opened my eyes to the need for someone like, someone like Chase to educate. Mandatory in classes in high school that it's a class you take and you learn about taxes. And honestly, I want to tell the team, as a team, football teams, we should be educating our players on these things, and it should be a mandatory class, in my opinion. And it's a great time for NIL, especially for, you see a lot of middle class families, lower class families now, you can start supporting your family in high school. And that's huge. And it's going to have a big impact on our culture in America as a whole, especially in the minority communities. It's going to be big, that money coming in. As soon as you get freshmen, sometimes in some cases, it's huge. And it's really important that you go to people like Chase to get educated so you're not losing your money and you're setting your family up for generational wealth. And on the back end of that, it's never been more of a time where more eyes are on people, more eyes are on you as an athlete, through social media, through your phone. And we just saw with Northwestern, they can get you for anything, even things you didn't even know about. So it's really important for people in college like my age to be aware of that and your presence and how you represent yourself. And last but not least, it's Dustin's birthday today. What?
Oh,
birthday, bro.
Is that right? Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, man.
Birthday, man. I love you, bro.
Yep. Thanks, Jaden. So I guess it falls on me now that segue. So first and foremost, I want to thank all of you guys for coming on. Great minds, excellent conversation. Like Dwayne said, can't say it any better. We have some brilliant minds that were on this episode today. And that's not to discredit anyone that's ever come on, but for this specifically in this topic, we had some brilliant conversation. I felt very, very well stimulated with the conversation that we were having. It was just amazing. Things came up that I think we're going to be watching now, for whether it be rules that are changing or whatever. We brought up some good points. I think I'm going to reinforce, like Dwayne and everyone else has, to Chase specifically. If you all don't have a CPA in your corner, it is very critical to think about that. And I just can't say it enough, especially for Chase. And yes, I'm biased, Chase. I'm biased to you, but like, find a CPA that you can trust and one that is knowledgeable in the journey that you're heading down, right? Chase brought up a lot of knowledge bombs today that I think are important to think about. So Chase, thank you. Alex, it's always amazing having you on. It's always fun. I love just the conversation, whether it be from athletics or even your business mind. Man, you're going places that I can only hope I can head. So I appreciate having you on. Dwayne, you and I have a long relationship, right? And it's just growing bigger and bigger, man. I mean, I never would have thought when you and I, puny little NBA people in school, would ever be on a stage like this where you and I are discussing things that are relevant and important. So my relationship and friendship with you is super important. And so always it's a pleasure with you. And then Jaden, you already know, dude, like I hold you in high regard, you and your family. You're amazing. Your growth, and you can see this looking at podcast episodes from the beginning all the way to now. I mean, you're growing at a substantial rate in your mind and in your education and your knowledge. You are just by far, man, like you being as young as you are, you're just amazing. And I cannot wait to see how Colorado performs one. So don't let me down there. But
Colorado State.
Oh, I meant to say Colorado State.
Yeah, me too. I'm interested to see how that goes too. Yeah.
No, I can't wait. No, in all seriousness, to see how Colorado State performs, because there's nowhere to go but up. I know you've been putting a lot of hard work in with your dad. I mean, you and your family, nothing but respect. I mean, I'm like the black sheep sometimes, but I know I'm part of your family and I just love you guys. So like, thank you for coming on. So like for this, guys, like, thank you for everything. For the listeners, I will have Chase's link up if there are listeners that need to talk to him for CPA. If anybody wants to talk to any one of us, Alex is on every social media under the sun like me. I will try to make some relevant social media posts to tag him in so you guys can talk to him. Dwayne is on LinkedIn. And then for Jaden's on every social media under the sun too. So I'll make sure that his relevant hashtags are on there as well too. So everybody, thank you. Thank you to everybody that was on today too. I appreciate you guys. We are not a good podcast without having brilliant minds. And this is just another example of one. So thank you all. Thank you for listening to Chopping with Fire. If you guys like what you heard, please head on over to your favorite social media platform and subscribe to our pages. If you can, please drop us a comment, like, subscribe, and furthermore, head on over to your favorite podcast platform and leave us a 5-star review. Again, thank you for that. We enjoy our listeners and we definitely enjoy communicating with them. Lastly, we're in a special month right now where we are up for getting nominations for Best Business Podcast. If you can head on over to the episode description, we have a link there where you can go and vote for your favorite podcasts under categories such as business, comedy, shorts, etc. We are going for the Best Business Podcast, so head on over to the business section and vote for Chopping with Fire. Again, thank you for listening to Chopping with Fire. We thoroughly appreciate you.